I want you to place yourself on the sidewalk here, looking at this house, and just watching it be engulfed in flames. And you listen, and there's no sirens. The police aren't coming. The fire department's not coming. Nobody's coming. And you realize this, and you realize that you're the only one who's going to do anything for this house on fire. So what do? Do you just scream for help? Do you go get the water hose and try to turn it on and do the best you can to put the fire out? What do? You don't do nothing. Surely you'll do something. My favorite saying of Dad's growing up was, don't just do something, stand there. That's what a lot would, don't do something, just stand there. But you would do something to try and put this house on fire out. And there's a couple reasons for that. In Jude, it says, and some have compassion, making a difference, and others save with fear. It says, pulling them out of the fire, hating even the garment spotted by the flesh. The Bible tells us that some have compassion and fear. And what they do is they save. They save with fear. If any one of us were to see one of our neighbors' homes on fire, we would immediately, we'd be scared. We'd be fearful. What if they're in there? We'd have compassion. Think about what they're going to lose. And if somebody's in there, what will be lost? And the Bible tells us what we do by having compassion. The Bible tells us what we do by saving with fear. It says that we make a difference. Those who have compassion, those who have fear, it says that they make a difference. Now, if you're like me, somebody's made a difference in your life, and I'd like to try something. Just raise your hand if there's somebody who made a difference in your life, and that's the reason you're here today. Maybe your mom, your dad, a neighbor. Somebody had to make a difference for you to be here today. That's the only reason you're here, or the main reason you're here, maybe I should say. I don't suppose any of us just walked in of our own accord. The Bible says we have to have compassion and fear if you want to make a difference. And I'm thankful for the people that made a difference in my life. And they looked at a young boy or a young man and they thought, if I don't do something, if I don't have compassion or fear, then this young man will spend eternity in hell. If I don't do something. There's a lot of children here. We want to make a difference in their life. We want them to go to heaven. We want everybody to go to heaven. And what it takes is compassion. It takes fear to make a difference, to put somebody on that right track. So the question is, who's in there? You're standing outside the home today. Who's in there? I hope you're thinking of somebody that you know that they're not here today. They're not worshiping God today. They're in this house on fire. Maybe it's your brother or your sister. Maybe it's your parents or your children, your grandchildren. Maybe it's your best friend from college or the neighbor. But we all know somebody, just like we all know somebody that made a difference in our life, we all know somebody who's in there. You know somebody who's in there. And it's sad, we come up with excuses. We say, well, that's not my thing. It's not my thing to evangelize. I got other things that I do, and that's just not really my thing. I say, well, don't we have evangelists? That's what Timothy's here for. Timothy does that. That's what we have elders for. They're supposed to go and say, they're supposed to set up studies, they're supposed to invite, they're supposed to evangelize. We say, well, it's not my job. See, I'm the sound guy. I'm the song leader. I'm the safety man. I hold the doors open. I've got a job. It's not this. Come up with these excuses. Sometimes you hear people say, well, I don't even know what I would say. Well, sure, I know somebody in the fire, my best friend from college, but what do I even say? Where do I begin? What do you do? I don't even know what to do. Come up with these excuses of why we can't have compassion. Excuses that keep us from saving with fear. Excuses that keep us from making a difference. The same difference that somebody made for you. So we're going to talk about making a difference just briefly this afternoon, and why that's so important that we have compassion, why it's so important that we save with fear. The Bible tells us about the value of a soul in Mark chapter 8. It says, "For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" Now, we talk about this oftentimes when we think about our own situation, and we talk about how important it is that we think about our own soul. But this means that the person sitting next to you, their soul is just as valuable as yours. What good's it going to do if you go through life and you're a great Christian and you're always at church and you always want to do good things, but the person next to you spends eternity in hell? That's not going to feel very good. We don't like to think about that, do we? That's not a fun thought. But the Bible tells us the value of the soul, and that value is on everybody, whether it is your brother or your sister, your children, your grandchildren, your college roommate. Their soul's just as important as yours is. They're needing someone to make a difference in their life, just like you needed that at some point. So don't sit idly by. Don't sit idly by. We often, if you don't have one of those excuses we talked about, we usually just aren't thinking about it. Like we talked about this morning, it's just not even on our radar. It gets pushed to the back. We've got other things that we're busy with, but the Bible says we shouldn't sit idly by. Proverbs 26:13 says, "The slothful man saith, there's a lion in the way, a lion is in the streets." You see, a lazy man, he looks out at going to work and going and making a living, and he goes, well, there's danger, there's trouble, there's problems out there. If I go out there, I might get killed. I might get in trouble. But it says that's what the lazy man says. The lazy man thinks of excuses and goes, it's just safer here. It's safer if I don't even make an attempt. We got to think about the lion that's out there, though, and the people that are already out there. It's great whenever we sit in the church and we got wonderful people here and we're happy and we're cozy right here in this setting. But we think there's a lion out there. That's where the problems are. They're outside these walls. That's what the lazy man says. I can't go out there. Everything's so good and so comfortable right here. Matthew chapter 5 and verse number 14 says, "Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." We're supposed to let our light shine. We're supposed to let people see so that we can bring people to God, so that they can see the good works and glorify Him. And glorify Him. And I started thinking about this verse in a slightly different way than I had before. I don't know why. It may be just the phrasing of it. It may just be me. I'll let you be the judge of that. But I've always just thought of it as just let your light shine. Like I'm so great. I'm just going to go out into the world and people are going to see how good Zane is and just come running to Christ. And it doesn't work that good. I ain't that great. I ain't that great. I've heard a prayer, and if y'all pray this, I apologize. It's just never sat right with me. People say, we may be the only Bible that some people ever read. And I go, whoop-de-doo. What good does that do them? What good does it do if somebody, like I'm so great, if they see me, they're just, that doesn't do them any good. If they see me out in the world and I'm just a good guy, that doesn't do them any good. And I don't know, I don't want to take away from what the Bible says. It says, let your light so shine. Folks, this afternoon, don't just let your light shine. Don't just expect that you're so great. I'm sure you don't actually think that, but don't just think that, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm just supposed to go out in the world and let the light shine, and it's just going to shine and good things are going to happen. Folks, this afternoon, don't let your light shine. Shine your light. Shine with purpose. You got that person at work that you've been trying to talk about spiritual things with. You've been trying to get a conversation going, maybe get a study and get them to church. Don't just let your light shine. Go and shine your light for that person. Do that with purpose. It's okay to think that out ahead of time. It's okay. This is how we bring, it's not just that we're so great and that our light shines because I'm so bright. You got to shine your light with purpose so that people may see the good works. John chapter 15, it says, "Herein is my Father glorified, that ye bear much fruit, so shall ye be my disciples." It's our job. It's what we talked about this morning. We got to be a worker for the kingdom. We got to bear fruit. We got to be out working and helping the kingdom. We got to be seeking opportunity to bear fruit, and not just hoping that it will come our way and hoping that this person will just fall into our lap that just begs us to baptize them immediately. It just doesn't work like that very often. We got to go out and bear the fruit. The next thing is that the window will close. Our opportunities will close. In Ecclesiastes chapter 9 it says, "Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave, whither thou goest." There comes a day when the opportunities are over. And we read verses like this in James chapter 4, which we'll read in a moment, and we say, well, our lives, they go by so quickly. They go by so quickly. So just the other day, I was a kid, and now I've grown up. Life goes by so fast. And if that's true, and if life goes by so fast, what about our opportunities? What about that person that you may only work with for a few years? And how much quicker that opportunity's gone. And if you could go back and tally the opportunities you actually had to evangelize to them and see how few that really was. How few chances you had to make a difference. Jesus says, "I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. The night cometh when no man can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world," Jesus says. There comes a time when maybe it's not just that you grow old and that the person you wanted to save, your best friend, your kids, or whatever, they grow old and die. It's the opportunity. You may not have a chance either. And I go back and I think about that house on fire, and I think about who's in there. And the fact that you may be the only person that can reach the people in that house. I can't go get to them. They won't listen to me. They're not going to listen to Jameson. They may only listen to you. You might be the only one. There's going to come a time when no man can work, when you won't have the chance, won't have the opportunity. James says, "Whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow." What is your life? It's a vapor. And it just appears for a little time and vanishes away. We all want to save. We all want to have compassion. If you're here today, I trust you want to make a difference for the people in your life. Be that your children or your neighbor. You want to make a difference for them. I want you to know the window's closing. For all we know, the window could just be this much open, and your last chance could be tomorrow. Your last chance for your neighbor could be today. We don't know. So the question's asked, do I have a responsibility? I know the window's closing, and I know I shouldn't sit idly by, but do I have a responsibility? Or are those excuses we talked about, are they relevant? Do they make sense? Are they okay? Jesus talks about in Matthew 25 about all these different scenarios of people. And in verse number, I think 45, it says, "Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of the least of these, ye did it not to me." And he illustrates this point that we have an opportunity, or rather a responsibility. You have a responsibility to minister to those around you. When you see a problem, when you see an issue, when you see someone in need, you're supposed to help. You're supposed to do something. You're supposed to have compassion. You're supposed to have fear. It's full of a list of people that we're supposed to have compassion for. Help them. Be there for them. And evangelize to them. Luke chapter 13, it says, and if it bear fruit, well. And if not, then after that thou shalt cut it down. Folks, if you're out bearing fruit today exactly like Christ wants you to, exactly as you're supposed to, it says, well. Good, well, that's well. I don't want to pat you on the back too much. It's what you're supposed to do. It's a good thing. Well, as if not, then after that, cut it down. We don't have room for people dragging us down. The church doesn't have room for people that refuse to work, that refuse to evangelize, that refuse to see the need and the desperation, and the house on fire. The Bible says, cut them down. Cut it down. And Jesus tells us in a verse we've read a couple times now, I guess this week, go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. Lo, I'm with you always, even unto the end of the world. Amen. And you wonder, is this for me? Is this for me what Jesus said? Was this for the apostles? Or was it for me? Or was it for everybody? And Jesus tells us, he says, lo, I'm with you always to the end of the world. Folks, if you're here today, this is for you. Furthermore, if you're here today, you should be doing this. Have confidence you can do this. You're able to do this. You've got the Word of God. Go and take that to people. Take that to people. It's not about what we have to say or what our ideas are. It's about the Scripture. It's about eternity. Go and teach. It's not hard stuff to teach. It's not hard to build a relationship with somebody and to take them the gospel. It may be uncomfortable at first. It may not always be easy. You can do it. You can do it. In closing this afternoon, I want to read this passage here in Luke. And we read about this man who was poor to Lazarus. And he passes away, Lazarus passes away, and then we pick up in verse 24. It says, and he cried and said, Father Abraham, this is after he lifted up his eyes and he sees that he's in torment. It says, Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime receives thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. And beside all this, between us and you, there's a great gulf fixed, so that they which would pass from hence to you cannot, neither can they pass to us that would come from thence. And he starts to realize what's been set in stone, this rich man. He says, I need relief. I don't like this. I am tormented. He learns that it's not undoable. He's stuck. He's stuck. Says there's a great gulf fixed. That you ain't going back. Lazarus is not coming to you. You're not going to Lazarus. It's over. Done. And we see this man who was so calloused, if that's a fair way to put it, not compassionate, who just didn't care, who didn't see a need, who didn't realize his responsibility when he looked on Lazarus before. And in the next verse, it says his attitude starts to change. Then he said, I pray thee therefore, Father, that thou wouldest send him to my father's house. For I have 5 brethren, that he may testify unto them, lest they also come into this place of torment. Abraham said unto him, They have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. Folks, if you don't take it from me, if you don't believe me or anything I've said, take it from this man. Take it from a man who is there and who's living it in the moment, who finds himself in torment, who sat idly by, whose window of opportunity has closed, who's stuck in his situation for eternity, who is not going anywhere and no one's going to him. Don't take it from me, take it from this man. His window's closed. He's full of regret. This man is full of regret. He wishes things had been done differently now. Now he's full of compassion. He starts thinking about other people. He's not thinking about himself. He knows it's over for him. He knows it's too late for him. He's full of fear now. We see who he's so compassionate for. We see who he regrets not doing something for. We see who he's so fearful for, and it's not himself. He's not fearful for himself. He's not compassionate towards himself. He's not full of regret for himself. All he cares about is who's in the fire. That's all he cares about. I've got 5 brothers. They don't know you. They don't know Christ. And he sees his brothers in that house on fire. And he knows where his brothers are. And he knows that there's no chance. He knows that somebody has to have compassion for them. Somebody must be fearful and save them. Someone must make a difference for his brothers. All he cares about. He's not worried about himself anymore. He's worried about those in the fire. And we see this man, and like I said, he seems so callous before, and he may have had these very same excuses, but one by one they start to disappear, and they just don't matter anymore. He's got no excuses. He just wants him to be okay. It's your job. The excuses don't matter. So I leave you with this thought. Who's in the fire? Who's in the fire? Is it mom and dad? Children? Is it your best friend? Who's in the fire? We must save with fear. If the church can help you with anything this afternoon, come as we stand and sing. Have you ever really wanted something? I mean, really wanted it. We can all probably go back and think about a time when we really wanted something, or maybe even just thought we really wanted something in life. And turns out, years later, we didn't really want that as bad as we thought. But do you remember that feeling when you get something you really want? I think back to whenever I was a kid, and I would expect that one present under the tree, and you'd wait for it, and then when Christmas morning's finally there, and you go and you open up that present, and it's here. There it is. And you've been waiting on it, and you've been expecting it, and you've been just thinking about it, and now here it is, I've got it. And what an amazing feeling that is. What about that feeling when you don't? And you've been expecting the gift, and you thought you were going to get the gift, and you were sure that mom and dad got it, and you go and there's the box, and you open it up, and it's socks or whatever it is. It's not what you wanted. What an awful feeling that is. You've been wanting this for so long, and now you just don't get it. Let me ask you this morning, do you want Jesus? Do you really want Jesus? Do you long for him? Do you desire him? Is that what you want for your life? You can't have him. You don't get him. You can't have Jesus. This morning, I want to tell you why you can't have Jesus. There's a few reasons, and we'll probably just talk about 3 or 4 this morning, reasons why you can't have Jesus today. The first one is because you fail the standards. We say we want Jesus, but we fail his standards. An example of a standard is in Matthew chapter 5. It says, "Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart." And so we see here an example of the standard. We've been called to a higher standard and a greater standard than the world. The Bible says if you look at somebody to lust after him, you've committed adultery. Do you know anybody out in the world that would say that was adultery today? Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You can look. There's nothing wrong with that. You just can't touch. You can't do anything past that. But the Bible says that this is already sin. The Bible tells us we have a higher standard than that. We have a higher standard than that. This is my standard. Is that your standard, Timothy? It's my standard. I want to keep this standard. We tell ourselves, I want to keep the standard. But sometimes we fail the standard. We give in to whatever it is in our life, and we fail the standard. We see another example of the standard in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse number 13, where it says, "There hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it." This is the standard for Christians today. The standard's not give in to the temptation every time it comes our way. The standard is look for the way of escape. The standard is remember that God is faithful and he's provided that way of escape. This is the standard. This is my standard. Jonathan, is this your standard? But sometimes we fail the standards. You know, sometimes we say, well, just this one time. Just this one time I'm going to give in. I've had a stressful week. I've had a hard week. And maybe we don't even think it through. Maybe it's just we've had the stressful week, and so we give in to the temptation one time. And that's failing the standard. The standard's been set. The standard is expected of us. Folks, if we fail the standards, if we allow ourselves to fail the standards, were they ever really our standards to begin with? I know we're sinful people. We're human, and we're going to fail. But if we tell ourselves, well, just this one time, that you had a hard week. I got a lot of things going on. The kids are sick. We make excuses for the standard. Was it ever really our standard to begin with? Folks, what good's a standard if you abandon it? If we're willing to abandon the standard over and over and over again, then in reality we didn't even care about the standard. It was really just a guideline. It was really just something we thought we wanted. It's really just something that we thought we were chasing after. Something that we pretended to everybody around us like we were holding ourselves to. But if we have these reasons and excuses for abandoning the standard, then it's not the standard. It's not our standard. We don't keep the standards. Folks, you can't have Jesus if you fail his standards. In Hebrews chapter 10 and 25, it says, "Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching." It's just my standard. Daryl, is that your standard? It's my standard. Sometimes we have excuses again. We fail the standard. Well, I'm not going to go to church today for the same reasons. Maybe we had a hard week. Well, I'm not going to make it to the gospel meeting. We already scheduled our vacation. Or it's too late. We already had the weekend at the lake planned, and so we're just not going to make it there. Hey, we've been at the lake all weekend, and now we're just so tired, I can't make it. I had a beef and bean burrito last night, and I'm okay, but, I'm not chancing it. Was that really the standard all along? If we're willing to abandon the standard, if we're willing to give up that easily, you can't have Jesus if you fail the standards. You can't have Him. I know a lady who spoke to one of my sisters, and she asked her, she said, man, I look at your family, and they're always at church. Y'all want to be there. You're excited about being there. Mind you, this lady, God bless her and her family, they come to church on Sunday mornings most of the time, more than 50% of the time, I'd say. They're there on Wednesday nights, rarely. Gospel meetings almost never. Sunday afternoons, never. And she asked my sister, how did your parents get y'all so excited about wanting to come to church and being involved in the church? And my sister, just the first thing she thought of, she said, well, my parents, they always took us to church. We didn't miss. It didn't matter if it was the gospel meeting or the Wednesday night or Sunday morning or afternoon or whatever that was. We went. And she said, well, we do that too. And you go, sometimes we tell ourselves, I've got this standard. And in reality, we don't even realize that we're so far away from the standard. It's not even funny. We're so far away from keeping this standard or keeping the standard of temptation. We say, well, I keep that standard. I find the way of escape. That's my standard. When in reality, that's what we think. That's what we tell ourselves. We're really just not willing to keep it. Folks, you can't have Jesus today if you fail His standards. You can't have Jesus because you won't work for Him. You're not willing to work for Him. Matthew 28 says, go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost. Jesus tells us that we're supposed to be workers. And I know there's other ways to work, but Jesus says that we need to be evangelizing. We need to be spreading the gospel. We need to be going and teaching and baptizing. I tell myself, I want to work for Jesus. That's what I want to do. I want to be a worker. We sang the song one night. Jonathan led it. I want to be a worker for the Lord. Isn't that what we want to do? Isn't that what y'all want to do here? And I look back at times in my life where this was the furthest thing from my mind. I mean, the furthest thing from my mind. And this is Jesus telling you to do this. Go and teach. I look back and I go, how many times have I attempted to do that? Folks, have you tried to teach somebody about Christ this year yet? It's already March. Have you tried this year? But we tell ourselves we're working for Him. We want to be working for Him. Did you try to teach somebody about Christ last year at all? Have you in the last 2 years even studied with anybody that didn't know Christ? In the last 5 years, have you ever studied with someone about Christ? Have you ever even tried? Yet, we want to be a worker for the Lord. He tells us to go and teach. And we've never even tried to study with anybody. We haven't studied with somebody in 10 years. We haven't taken the gospel to anybody. Folks, you can't have Jesus if you won't work for Him. You got to be working for Him. 1 Corinthians says, I beseech you, brethren, ye know the house of Stephanas, that it was the first fruits of Achaia, and that they have addicted themselves to the ministry of the saints. Like I said, there's other ways to work for Christ rather than just evangelism. And the Bible here talks about being addicted to the ministry and desiring the ministry and wanting that. You know, Zealand's 2 months old, and a couple weeks or so after he was born, I was walking through Walmart, and there was a Nintendo Switch. And I thought, we're about to be at home for a while. This could be fun. This could be an opportunity. And so I bought it, and I took it home. And I hadn't played Mario in years, and now I've played hours worth of Mario in the last 2 months. And it's been fun. See, I can see that sometimes I have an addictive personality. And you know what happens? The Switch is fun and all. What happens is I play that for a little while, and I put it away, and the next day I start thinking about it. It'd be fun. Let's go play that for a little while. And then the next day I think about it again, and so I go get it and I play it for a while. And you see, I can see this addiction growing to this thing. You know what an addiction is? When we think about addiction, of course, we don't think about a positive addiction. We think about a negative addiction. We think about somebody who's been addicted to drugs or something, and we think about how they think about that, and they want it, and they search for it, and they go after it, and they make sure they're going to get what they want. They miss it when you don't get it. It's like part of you's gone. Folks, a quick test, if you've addicted yourself to the ministry, do you miss it when you don't get to do it for a while? Does it make you, are you craving it? Do you want to get back to it? Think, man, I haven't been to a Bible study in a while. We've been gone. Things have been going on. I've been sick or whatever it is. I miss it, and I wish I could go and do that. I wish I could study with somebody. I wish I could just go to church, have a fellowship night. You ever miss that? You ever think about that? You ever go, man, I got to plan some time tomorrow to do this? I've been missing that. I need some of that. That's being addicted to something. I look back at my life and think, rarely have I been able to say I was addicted to the ministry. Rarely. Matthew 7, in a verse we read earlier this week, not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works. And then will I profess to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. They're saying, Lord, weren't we working? I thought all this time I was working. I thought all this time I was a faithful worker in the kingdom. I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do. I'm not working. Sometimes we tell ourselves, just like with temptation or the standard of going to church, this is what I do. I'm a worker. Sometimes we're just fooling ourselves. Sometimes we're just here. Just here. We go to church and we check it off the list and say, I'm a worker for the Lord. Doing it. Anybody know who this is? I figure most people probably know who this is. This is Kobe Bean Bryant. Kobe was a longtime NBA player for the Lakers. And Kobe has widely been known for his work ethic and for how hard he worked and how hard he trained. This man up here, that's Jay Williams. He was an outstanding college athlete at Duke. Great National Player of the Year. And he went to the NBA, and he was getting ready for his first game against Kobe. Kobe was several years older, had been in the NBA for a while. And they were in Los Angeles, and so Jay goes to the practice facility hours and hours ahead of the game that morning. And when he gets there, Kobe's there already. And he said, Kobe's already full speed. He's sweating. And so Jay Williams goes and he starts working out and doing his workout. And he works out hard and for several hours, and he gets done, and he goes and he sits down, and he looks up, and Kobe's still working out, full speed. And he just sits there and watches Kobe work out for another 45 minutes or an hour. And then later that night, said Kobe scored about 40 points on us. And after the game, I had to know, Jay Williams says, I had to know why. Why is he doing this? Why is he working like that? And so he finds him after the game, and he asks him that question. And Kobe said to him, I saw you in the practice facility, and I just wanted you to know you will not work harder than me. You will not train harder than me. I don't care how long you work out or how often you go and work, I will work harder. That's addicted. That's addicted to your work. That's addicted to your craft. That's crazy. That's crazy. And Kobe's work ethic, it shows. And Kobe has accolades to show for his work and for how much he worked. He was a 5-time champion, an 18-time All-Star, 15-time All-NBA, 12-time defense, MVP, 2 times Olympic gold medalist, and a unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer. His work shows. His resume proves to us how hard he worked at playing basketball. And so the question comes to mind that this man who is addicted to his craft, what does your resume show for Christ? What does your resume show? Do we have anything to put on our resume as a worker for the Lord? Did Kobe train harder at basketball than you work for Christ? At putting a ball through a hoop than you work for the Son of God? Did Kobe have his teammates back more than you have each other's back? Did Kobe want to win the championship more than you want to go to heaven? Just look at the resume. He was addicted to his work. Folks, you can't have Jesus if you won't work for him. You can't have him. You can't have Jesus, simply put, because you don't want him. Sometimes we tell ourselves, I want Jesus. I want him. I desire the work. I desire the standards. In reality, we don't even want it. Titus chapter 1 says, they profess that they know God, but in works they deny him. See, we can say we want Jesus. We can say we keep the standard. We can say that we are working for him. But what does our life show? What do your actions show about you wanting Jesus? About you keeping the standard? About you working for him? The Bible says there's some people, they say they know God. They profess even. They tell other people, I know God. But in works, they deny him. Do our works, do our actions, does our life deny God when we say we know him? When we act like we know him? And so I got to ask why? Why would we say we want Jesus and really we don't? Why would we say we want him when in reality we don't even want him? And I've got a few reasons for that as well. The first one is because you prefer your life before or without Christ. We look back at the old man and we look back at our old life and we liked it better in reality. Or maybe you're not a Christian and you think, well, I like my life now. And I know I'm going to have to give something up to want Jesus. In Galatians chapter 4 says, howbeit then, when ye knew not God, ye did service unto them which by nature are no gods. But now after that ye have known God, or rather are known of God, how turn ye again to the weak and beggarly elements, whereunto ye desire again to be in bondage? Paul spends several chapters here talking to the Galatians and trying to get them to leave the past behind, to look past the old law and look to Christ. And he has some trouble doing that if you've read through Galatians. He has to tell them over and over again. And what he's saying is, well, now you know God, why do you keep going back to these things of the past? He says, how turn ye again to the weak and beggarly elements, whereunto ye desire again to be in bondage? Our life before Christ, it's bondage. If you're not a Christian, your life today without Christ, it's bondage. It's slavery. But sometimes we look back at that life and we go, I like that. There's something there that I want, that I still desire. And our actions in that